There's been studies and studies and studies done showing that when people do something creative with their hands, so this includes gardening, cutting up vegetables and cooking in the kitchen, it can be anything, basket weaving, knitting is my number one passion. When you're busy doing that, your brain finally gets a break. And you can actually creatively think and problem solve far more successfully when you allow time for this play, for lack of a better term. And that's one thing I notice with my clients that I work with one-on-one. When they first come to me, they're very serious about their goals. And I ask them, almost every single person, it's, where are you having fun? Are you playing? Where do you play? It needs to be fun. And life, you get to live life. So where's the fun in this? So so coming back to what you're asking about how it becomes a spiritual practice, I think it's a practice of mindfulness and taking time out to say, I matter. That's a big deal because it doesn't look very productive.
Welcome to the Sober Edge podcast, inspiration for alcohol-free living. I'm your host, Teri Patterson, functional nutritionist and This Naked Mind senior coach. The Sober Edge is a place to explore the infinite possibilities on the other side of drinking. In a culture soaked in booze, discover the wonder and joy of taking a different path. Meet real people living lives of purpose and passion, learn the truth behind the alcohol myths, and get ready to be motivated, inspired, and astounded by what is possible with the Sober Edge. Well, hey, everyone. It's Teri back with another edition of the Sober Edge podcast, and I am delighted to introduce you to my friend, Brigitta Dau. And Brigitta is a coach. She's a speaker, facilitator. She's a crafter. And she has a beautiful business that incorporates so much of this. And her tagline to her business is mind, body, soul. So let's start there, Brigitta. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited to be here and talking with you further. Um, so the mind, body, soul is really, to me, it speaks to all the different things that I'm fascinated by, curious about, and I also don't believe that healing and growth comes from one way. I think that it is a beautiful mixture of what's going on with your mind, how are you moving your body, is your body in alignment? I believe our bodies can give us a lot of very helpful information if we're listening to them. We tend to be in our head a lot. There's the mind part, and then there's the soul. There's the, are you in alignment with really makes your soul sing? What makes your soul sing? And when you can kind of get those three things in alignment or close to in alignment, then life gets beautiful and interesting and growth is possible and who knows what's possible. So I kind of go at healing from all different perspectives.
Yes. And I see that the mind part is really about the coaching and the work that you do there.
Yeah.
And the body part, you're also a Reiki master. And then the
Yes.
soul part makes me think of that crafting, that creative energy that sort of gives us that insight to what lights us up.
Yeah, absolutely. I also have certification in Pilates. So sometimes, yeah, so the Pilates, that's actually what started me into coaching was going into Pilates, seeing how important it is to have your body in alignment, quite literally your bones in the right place, and how then the muscles can work and how you can actually breathe differently. Even where your head sits can affect you because what you see on a daily basis will impact how you experience the world. So something as simple as changing your posture can actually change your life. And that got me started down this different kind of path of growth and learning and self-discovery. And pretty soon after going into Pilates, you have conversations with your clients, you get to know each other. Then I became a coach, whether I was coaching or not. So then it all kind of went from there. And then the coaching and the crafting has come into it. And Reiki also, yes, the energy work is a beautiful kind of a salve that you can put over all of these things because Reiki can support people with physical pain. But I really enjoy using Reiki for emotional healing, um, kind of getting past our fears so that we can really take the risks in our lives that we want to take. It helps us find clarity. So it kind of, again, it fills in those gaps where just approaching something from one modality doesn't quite meet the mark.
Yeah, I love that we're talking about it and in this way, because I've often said in my 10 years of alcohol freedom, one of the things that has continually showed up for me is the way that I used to be all in my head all the time. And I loved that you said that many of us are that way because I've often felt like it was just me. I was walking around as if I only had a head. I wasn't connected to my body. I didn't understand emotions. I was trying to think my way out of everything. And I've recently been focusing more on not only in my own work, but also I just finished a certification this fall on trauma informed nervous system regulation. And that is fascinating because it's continually reminding me that we have to create safety before we can do any of the other things that we're talking about. And so I've long been fascinated by Reiki. And I have to confess, I've never had a Reiki session, but I'm
Okay.
sure it's coming. But how does that connect to nervous system, Brigitta?
I'm so glad you asked that. Because you said the word safety, and that's the key. And when we're giving up a substance, and alcohol is the one that you and I both have in common, the nervous system can feel very frayed because often what we used alcohol for, we used it for many reasons, but often one of them was to calm us down. We thought we were wrong in that thinking, but we believed that it was helping calm us down, and the body to some degree did think that as well. And so when you take away this kind of quick fix, if you will, the body doesn't really know what to do, and it does go into a panic. And finding safety, literally safety for your physical self and your nervous system is crucial. Community does that. I think that's why we agree that being in community, getting a support system helps regulate that nervous system. But so can Reiki because I looked at it as a way for me, personally, it felt like it was softening the rough edges. That's the best way I can say it. It just softened things. It made things palatable. I was able to feel safe. I could trust that my body would figure itself out, that there was a healthy, natural way that my body would regulate, that my emotions could regulate, and I could trust that. And I think for me, when I was drinking, and even prior to that with my disordered eating, which I have a history of that since childhood, I didn't have a lot of faith in myself anymore. I let myself down on a daily basis. My self-esteem was shattered, and which of course creates shame. Then you don't wanna reach out to other people for help because you don't wanna have to talk about these things. Of course, that's the very thing you need is support, community, and a place for safety, to feel safe and to trust yourself. So Reiki will do that for you because it softens things. It takes the scary and makes it a little less frightening. You feel safe, and you can start to trust yourself. You learn how to trust the body, how to trust your intuition, and those are the things you were abandoning for so long.
Mm.
That's easier said than done. That takes a lot of, uh, quite frankly, faith, just throwing yourself into it and trusting the process.
Yeah. And I talk a lot about the fact that I feel like intuition is really blocked when we're using alcohol because we don't trust ourselves. Our no doesn't mean no, and our yes doesn't mean yes. And like you said, we're letting ourselves down and often other people on a daily basis. And so when we remove alcohol, we have the opportunity to start hearing that voice. That little spidey voice, which I now recognize is not just in my mind. It's not really even a voice sometimes. Sometimes it's an emotional response. Sometimes it's a physical reaction. And as I do more work and understanding and training around nervous system regulation, I realize that intuition comes from that place of being within that window of regulation.
Yeah, that's perfectly put. Exactly, and that communication could be, like you said, a voice, but it's often more image-based, physical sensation-based. That's why I think the trauma work that people are doing, like yourself, so much of it includes the body. because our bodies are so interesting that they can give us so much information if we slow down long enough to listen. It will tell us, simple cues, and I do this with people when we're talking about body awareness and food. Simple cues like knowing when you're hungry and
Mhm.
listening to that. You override that with these other things, particularly a substance like alcohol. I know a lot of times it's, what do I prefer? Do I want to drink or do I want to eat? Well, that's not going to be helpful to the body, and I'm overriding all of the cues my body is saying. My body probably would really like a nap, and instead I'm going for the alcohol, so I'm not listening. So I think also learning to listen to our body is a part of the work that certainly is required when you're looking at trauma response, because the body is giving us information, but that we've lost through the alcohol use or whatever form, food problems as well. We've lost the ability to read and listen to our body
Mm.
and our emotions and the spirit, all of it saying, "Hi, I'm dying over here. Can you help me? Can we stop with this?" And most people will say when they gave up alcohol, they didn't they quit a bunch of times, but it didn't really stick, right? We knew long before we actually quit drinking that we should probably quit drinking.
Mhm.
Years for some people.
Oh, yeah. I was actually being interviewed on a podcast, and the interviewer asked me, well, how long, when was the first time you knew? And, kind of humbling to say, it was 15 years.
Yeah, yeah, uh-huh.
I had a sort of crisis of identity, and I picked up and moved my entire family to the country because I felt like I was losing my family and myself because of this boozy environment we were in. And guess what followed me to the country? Me. Me. I was still there. No work done. I just moved locations.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And alcohol is readily available in the country too.
Oh my gosh, yeah, in any country. I read something today that I think touches on this conversation, and it was just a passing. I think I was looking at Substack and read a quote or an idea, and I think that I can't give credit to the person, but what they were talking about was that that the women who often can intellectually tell you about their trauma and their disconnection and the work they're doing and therapy and all of this are often the least connected with their bodies because they have intellectualized the understanding, and it's all in their brain. It's all cognitive. It's not nervous system. It's not emotions. It's not recognizing patterns of the body. And I thought, ooh, that is so interesting. I'm wondering what you think of that.
I love that. And I think it's accurate. There's a level of knowing and learning and teaching, and we need that kind of first. And I also think educationally, I mean, you can look at the way we eat in the United States. Pardon me, that's my dog. Um, that we know factually what's healthy for us and what isn't healthy for us. You don't need a degree in nutrition to know that. Just like we knew, you know, when that we probably the drinking wasn't good for us. We knew that. So it really isn't about facts at a certain point. Because what's really gonna create the change is when you really get it, and then you've gotta have all things flowing. We have a lot of systems. We have our mental system, but we have an emotional system, as you said. We have a physical system, circulatory. We have an emotional system, spiritual system. These things move at different paces,
Mm.
and I do think so. Therapies, I love therapy, and I always and I love coaching, of course, but there's a certain point where that's you have to take it from the head into the experience.
Mhm.
And again, this requires that slowing down and trusting the process because these are things you do not get from a textbook or
Yeah.
lecture. You
I
get
read somewhere that we have, it's called information fallacy. So we have that line that says, when you know better, you'll do better. But It's not really true because the knowing alone isn't the answer. And so, if information was the ticket to mental wellness, emotional health, relationship safety, then we would read a book and we would be
Yep.
golden. But that nervous system requires a lived experience.
That's the key. And I actually just had this on a personal level, a conversation with a good friend of mine whose husband's mother is now moving into assisted living. I've been through this before. And she wisely reached out to me and said she had a whole bunch of ideas, and probably she'd read a lot of articles and done exactly what, what we do to we learn as much as we can. Let me educate myself on this as much as possible. And then I said, here's the truth of having lived through this. There are certain things that you can trust. There were just certain bits of advice that I thought there's no way I would have known this if I'd read this in a book. And one of the biggest pieces of information I shared with her for her husband was to not rush the process, because you get one shot at this. People don't move into assisted living and then move out again, rarely. It's usually this is that step in their life. It's a new chapter, and you in my opinion, you wanna be as present for that as possible,
Mhm.
and I say that wishing I'd been more present because I was drinking at the time. So I have regret there, and I can say there's some moments here that you don't really need to, quote, unquote, "do anything," but be present for it. Now, I wouldn't know that unless I'd lived it. I I don't think I would have read that anywhere or understood what that meant,
Mhm.
which really what I was saying in that is tell him to give himself permission to not rush back to work.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm,
Yeah, and that is where community, again, as we talked about, is so powerful because I often think, we don't need to make all of our own mistakes. You can
yes.
say, don't do that, or that doesn't work out well, or here's a cautionary
Yes.
tale. And I could say,
Yes.
oh, I'm so glad you shared that. We often think that the we're going to be so strong and independent and we're going to
Mhm,
muscle our way through. And,
mm.
I work with a lot of clients who are that type A, high achievers, v- very successful in every area of their life except when it comes to their relationship with alcohol. And we're looking at certainly not just the mechanics of drinking, not drinking. We're looking at patterns of self sabotage, being afraid to ask for help, learning self trust, grounding in your nervous system. And this is where other people help us co regulate, offer, support, all of that. It's such an important part of it.
It's such an important part of it. That's one thing I've got a group going right now. They're called the Momentum Collective. It's a group of women, and in that group, they are very different and very successful women. Corporate America's success, big time, climbing the ladder. And in this group, we spend a good amount of time talking about all sorts of things that one needs to when you're setting goals and achieving the goals. And we spend a good amount of time talking about what are the spiritual practices that we are going to use for ourselves. How can we collectively, we do Reiki every week together, because collectively, that's how we have the courage to go out there and do these things on our own. I do feel very strongly about you. We go out, we do the thing. Yes, we climb the ladder, we take the risks. But those skinny branches that we're climbing out onto, we can only really hang out there and take these risks if we know we're safe. Here comes that word again. And that safety doesn't, I mean, for me at least, it's never come by myself. There has to be another person involved. There has to be a community involved where I know they're cheering for me and they're going to have their arms out for me if I wobble. Like they got me. Then we're unstoppable. Then we can give up something like alcohol that is feels so daunting.
Mm. And I love that. It's beautiful. Great metaphor to think about those skinny branches and, that we do need that safety net that
Yeah.
often comes from others. I want to talk a little bit about the spiritual side when it comes to crafting, because I know that that's also a passion of yours. And I just love the way it's woven together into the human that you are, but also how you do this work in the world. So, could you share how that has come about in your life and the connection of, connect the dots for us between that as a spiritual practice, if that's truly the way you feel?
Yeah, I do, and it's funny, I never used to, but, um, I think part of the process of giving up alcohol is also, coming home to things and seeing them differently. And so for me, crafting and I am very comfortable when I say crafting, it doesn't need to be fancy. I'm a big fan of those adult coloring books you see at the drugstore when you're standing in line to pay for something, right? You can get the coloring books, you got the markers are right there. Great. That works. Cutting and pasting is my favorite thing to do, vision boards and manifestation journals, because it requires very little skill, but it does still require you to be mindful because you're looking at pictures, you're cutting things out, you're gluing them in. There's something fun and playful and, youthful about that, and it brings you to present moment. And there's been studies and studies and studies done showing that when people do something creative with their hands, so and this includes gardening, cutting up vegetables and cooking in the kitchen, it can be anything, basket weaving, knitting is my number one passion. When you're busy doing that, your brain finally gets a break, and you can actually creatively think and problem solve far more successfully when you allow time for this play, for lack of a better term. And, that's one thing I notice with my clients that I work with one-on-one. When they first come to me, they're very serious about their goals, and I ask them almost every single person, it's, "Where are you having fun? Are you playing? Where do you play? This needs to be fun." And life you get to live life. So, where's the fun in this? So coming back to what you're asking about how it becomes a spiritual practice, I think it's a practice of mindfulness and taking time out to say, "I matter." That's a big deal because it doesn't look very productive, particularly my corporate ladder people, how does having a vision board or creating a manifestation jar, how does those seem really silly? But they light a part of me up where it actually will give me more energy, and for that corporate ladder work that I'll do later. But this gives me the energy and the connection, the alignment to something fun and playful, and there's compassion there, there's curiosity there. Those are all the juicy things. I feel like if you have compassion and curiosity, again, you're unstoppable. You're
Mm.
gonna figure it out, and you're gonna find people who want to join you.
Yes, I get so excited because I often talk about the science of play and why playfulness and that care for those carefree moments. And one of the things that is fascinating, I've known this for a long time. I read a book called Burnout by the Nagoski sisters, and they talk about the stress cycle. And they call it something different, but I call it complete the stress cycle. And so if we think about it, and this is before I had nervous system trained work. So connecting the dots to say that, okay, so here's the thing. A part of what you're talking about is why this is so restorative and important. One of the things that can help us complete the stress cycle is any creative act. And here's why. When we do something creative, it brings a sense of safety. So if we look at nature, if an animal is peacefully grazing in the forest, their nervous system is not overactive. They're not looking, they may be noticing and aware, but they're not hyper vigilant about the things that feel threatening in their environment. And it's true for us. If we're to sit down and play a tune at the piano, or we sit down and do 2 pages in our adult coloring book, we are not scanning the environment for threat. We're actually dropping into that grounded place where our nervous system feels regulated. And from that place, creativity flows, cognitive thinking flows, connection flows,
Mhm.
self trust flows.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. We just had that experience. I'm so glad you mentioned that because this weekend I just was co-leading a retreat for women and one of the things we do is crafting. And again, people think, "Oh, that's kinda interesting." And quote unquote non-crafters will show up and say, "I've never really crafted before, so I don't really know about this." They're the ones who love it the most. They take to you know, but what I love about it is we're busy crafting and the conversations are unbelievably amazing. We go straight to intimacy because just like you just said, you feel safe.
Mhm.
There's a safety there, and we're not, again, looking at not that you can't look at another person and feel safe, but there is that focus on play. So we're not scanning for I love how you said that, you're not scanning for the dangers, you're trusting the experience, you're trusting the place, you're trusting the environment, you're trusting who you're playing with. Because children, when they're playing, they suspend reality together. "Let's play this today." "Okay." And they're both all in. And we can do that as adults in community to do that. It is I say magical and I mean it. It's pretty magical what can happen. And the connections, it gives me chills. We had some amazing conversations that were not a part of the topics of conversation that we'll have at our retreat, you know?
Yes.
Weren't that. They were far deeper than anything I could have ever come up with this thinking brain of mine. It was much better having it organically just come out of the art and the play that we were doing as a group. It's magical.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the work of Stuart Brown, he identifies 8 play personalities. And I love to share it with my groups because it helps us expand our idea of what play is. So, for example, for me, and I'm curious for you, one of them is the director. And it is so much fun for me. And I can see the through line from when I was a child. I was the cousin who would get all the other cousins together when we were at the ranch and make us perform for the adults and do a play and have skits. I still love to play charades, but where I really find myself directing is in the work I'm privileged to do, where I get to coach and facilitate and share ideas. And I'm directing the facilitation of the conversation and the moments that spark up, I'm leaving space for that, just like I would direct a play. And I realize,
Right.
oh, this feels like play to me. And so I love the idea of, letting people know you could be a practical joker, you could be a kinesthetic, you could be play is adventure, the call to adventure, whether that's
Yeah.
inward or outward, people that book trips, plan trips for other people. They plan dinner
Yeah.
parties. People that are collectors, people that are competitors. They love competitive play. And
Yeah.
we often, in our adult version of life, forget how to
Yeah.
play or minimize the act of play. And so I love that crafting and the creative energy that comes can mimic or align with playfulness and create not only that sense of safety, but like you said, coming home to
Yeah.
that childlike wonder and joy that sparks out of being silly or being so immersed in the moment that we're in flow.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I do it is flow. It is a flow state that we're
Mhm.
in. And it's an opportunity to notice what's blocking the flow internally. Because there is nothing like a blank canvas or a box of fresh, new, beautiful paints and paintbrushes to freak you right out. Right? The inner critic comes in right away, and if you do, internal family systems work, you've probably got a whole bunch of parts of you that are coming up to comment on how you have to be perfect. "Don't do this, choose that color, don't do that. Oh, hers is better than yours." You think you can draw a flower? You think you can draw a face? Hands? I mean, there are things like drawing faces freaks me out, because I get all about, "It's gotta be perfect, it's gotta be all these things." And I think that's an opportunity for growth too. That's why I love teaching this, because I just think, how fascinating is this?
Mhm.
We're supposed to have fun, and all of a sudden it's you're comparing yourself to the lady sitting next to you because her flowers look prettier than your flowers, or it's just an opportunity to notice. and just say hi. And again, Reiki can come into that. I often do Reiki with creativity because that critical voice won't go away usually, but you can certainly turn the volume down.
Mm.
And you can sit it to the side and say, I know you're going to be here, much like anxiety for some people. It'll probably possibly be there, but it won't be running the show. It won't be in the driver's seat. That's what you do when you work with people. You get them to regulate so that their anxiety isn't driving the minibus. You are driving the minibus, but anxiety's in the back seat having a snack. And that's fine.
Yes.
Right? That's how I look at it, is like they're all parts are welcome, including that critical voice. It serves a purpose. But for this particular moment, I'm going to turn the volume down on that. You're going to set to the side, and I'm going to really be present here, and I'm going to enjoy this moment of freedom and inspiration. And the more we do that, then the more we can start to, again, here's the word, trust ourselves. Trust when that intuition comes through and says, hey, I know you thought you should turn right, but maybe go left here. Because you now have a language, you understand when that's speaking to you. And you can discern, is this an old trauma habit or a trauma belief coming through? Or is this really a part of me that's saying, no, do this, yes, do this. Or a very strong no to something also. Right?
Hmm.
I think learning that our internal language is requires these different techniques like what you're talking about, play and nervous system regulation. And what does that even look like for me?
Hmm. Yeah. And I think of what you were saying there reminds me, I often will share with people that, if we're holding so tight to something, we have no ability to see what is for us. And one of the things that when people, I've been talking to my groups about intuition, and when people talk about, well, how do I know if it's, that voice holding me back or that voice saying yes? And it is that, getting into a grounded state and asking, when was the last time you felt a resounding yes? And what did that feel like?
Yeah.
Because if it was that tightening, that clenched fist, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for the expansive, open sigh of relief, whether that's a yes or a no, whether it was a solid no that you felt a deliberate sense of almost peace when that decision or that thought or that opportunity or direction shows up, as opposed to the I don't know, this feels like this feels really big, I'm not sure. That is a different response, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not right for you. It means we need to get back to safety and ask again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so beautiful. 100%.
Mhm. Yeah, and so all of these weave together, and I love that, as we grow as alcohol-free women and as we grow, we get to offer the things that we're experiencing. And so this is why I think it took me 10 years to come up with, "Oh, I get to work on nervous system with people now. It's actually the place that I'm moving toward and have been working on." And I
Yeah.
get to bring this forth from my own lived experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, and our businesses evolve.
Absolutely. And I think too, more and more people doing this research and writing about it and sharing about it. And I think these are things that we discovered kind of by accident to some degree. The notion of community helping regulate your nervous system, those words we didn't have
Mm,
years ago.
mhm,
And co-regulating with people, that I wouldn't have known what you're talking about. But it really was happening. This is why, for example, yoga is one of those things that is included with a lot of healing modalities, is a movement because you're doing it with people, you're moving, you're co-regulating, your support animals. There we have it. Nothing regulates you, or can, in my case, sometimes my dog can dysregulate me.
Same, same.
Yes, we were talking about that. But for, they really do have, a good friend of mine has a dog that supports him with anxiety, and it's fascinating. All the dog does is just put her paws on him, and and makes him look at her, and that's it.
Mm,
That's it. And yeah, I know, but it's like, "Get here now. I'm here. Look at me." And that's all that has to happen for him to just go, "Oh, yeah, I'm not breathing."
mhm.
And that's co-regulation.
And
And
you
so
talked
now we're
about
learning.
leading a retreat, and you and I have met the way
Yes,
that we know each other. I think maybe the first time we met was in
Tampa.
Tampa. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we have both enjoyed being the sober in the city groupies, as I like
Yes.
to think of it, because what an incredible group to be in. I
Yeah.
remember someone told me one time, like, I don't want to just be a groupie. I want to do my own thing. And I thought, I can't wait to be a groupie and hang out with these amazing women and grow and offer what I can and connect. And so, it's so beautiful to see us coming out of the isolative experiences and the way that we could connect with people through COVID and post COVID. And now we're in this re-engagement era. And so I mentioned to you, I'm off to do a retreat this next week, and I will be heading to a retreat in Medellin in February. And I just came from a weekend, or it was midweek to weekend long trip with my husband and two other couples. And these are women that they were originally my clients. I met them through a group program. They got to be best friends. I got to be best friends with one of them. And the six of us with our partners got together as almost like a mini retreat. We went
Wow.
to a wolf sanctuary. We went to cliff dwellings. And we did some, stargazing, all of this intentional but also very restorative community events. And I think when I stopped drinking in 2015, there really weren't communities like this available. There was a traditional 12-step program, and there really wasn't anything else. There was just emerging, barely the infancy.
Yeah.
And so I did a lot of this work initially on my own. And what a gift to now have the world opening back up and the recognition that in person has so much value and so
Oh,
much to offer.
so absolutely, 100%. And I think when you pull together a group of people who are like-minded, who have gone through, again, going back to what you were talking about at the very beginning about life experience, there's such love there, because we see each other on a different level. I might not know your whole story. I don't need to know your whole story. You'll share it with me if you want to, but the bottom line is I already know you and I have something really big in common, and I respect you, and I'm happy you're here. That's really what it comes down to. My husband was with me on the more recent one, the trip that you and I were on in Arizona, and his comment was, "These are some of the most loving people I've been around," because he's watching me go running out into the hotel lobby to hug somebody,
Mm.
like, literally charging across the room, and they're charging across the room to hug me too, and he travels a lot with me, and he's not seen this in every event because it doesn't happen in every event. I think that these particular events are very special. And you are absolutely right that being in person with people, it does make a difference. I think also what wasn't happening back in 2015 was the shame was still attached to a lot of this, that I think because we're doing this in person now, we've taken the shame out of it, or we're trying to take the shame out of it. So we are joyfully coming together and saying, "Yeah, I don't drink alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah, and what
Let's
a
go not
difference.
drink alcohol together."
Let's not do that together. But what a
Yeah.
difference from if we just think about the most famous 12-step program, Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't need to be anonymous. I'm
Yes.
proud and excited about leveling up and allowing myself to be intentional about discovering the best version of me. And I think that there is sometimes, I have mad respect for AA, and I know people that has been their path. And it's not to
100%.
disparage, but I think that for me and for many of the people that I work with, the idea that I can't share this exciting transformation, or I wouldn't want to, or other people would be upset is
Yeah.
kind of it's kind of puzzling to me because you and I have lived our alcohol-free life out loud.
Yeah. I'm so grateful that that's the case. I think that the anonymous aspects that to me make it feel shameful in some ways of AA are what kept me away from going sooner. You know, I didn't or that's not what kept me away from giving up alcohol sooner. I felt that was the only way to go, and I just couldn't see myself in that hiding, anonymous And what's interesting, the people that I do know who've been through AA, and I have friends who are over 25 years, they haven't drank. They're very open about it.
Mm.
And it's funny, in fact, my knitting group, there's quite a few of us who don't drink. We just found out this other lady, she's like, "Oh, yeah, I quit back when I was in my early 20s when nobody was quitting alcohol." But I did because I could see where it was headed in my family, and I just didn't like it. She's been sober for 30 something years, but they didn't have all of this, but, eh, I look to them and now they don't have any shame about it, but that's because 'cause they've been living with it for 30 some odd years. That's just a way of life for them, but for those of us who are starting and this is new, it's your first 100 days, most of us don't have a 100% linear experience of giving up alcohol. There's slips, there's slides, there's wobbles, as I like to call them, but I also don't believe in this journey that when you have a wobble or a sidestep that you go back to day 1.
Yeah.
I think you learned a lot. It's just like going to the gym or running a marathon. If you're running a marathon, you fall down at mile 8, you don't turn around and go back to mile 1. You you dust yourself off, you figure out what you tripped over, and you keep on going.
Yeah.
That's a little more empowering to me and a little bit maybe it's just maybe a more modern approach.
Mhm. Someone was sharing recently with our group that part of their struggle with AA is, or 12 step, is that um, we stay very much attached to the behavior
Mm,
and the past. And you and I have been talking this entire time about how this is a holistic journey. Very a very minimal part of it is the actual behavior of not drinking or not drinking. But what it is attached to and associated with is very much a holistic approach to understanding more about ourselves, trusting ourselves more, being more creative, intuitive, playful, connected, willing to be open and curious. And that also, like you said, one of the most powerful things we can do is be in this present moment. And if we are always connected, our identity is connected to past behavior, it's challenging to move beyond that into a place that feels like freedom.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I realize I've never thought about it quite like that, but I 100% agree. There has to be our why, which coaches talk about all the time. Of course, when you're giving up a substance, why are you doing it? It has to be greater than your desire, the why to not have it. But at a certain point, if you're living from that holistic practice, ideally, honestly, I think the why should change. My why now is because I love my life. I don't want to miss it.
Yeah.
It's actually got nothing to do with all the terrible things that I was experiencing when I was drinking, and they all exist. I did all of those things in my mind. I should say they all exist in my mind and in my memory, but I don't require those anymore. They don't they don't move me the way they did back at the very beginning. Now it's really I think to myself, I just don't wanna miss another moment, quite frankly. I'm being selfish about it.
Yeah,
'Cause
I
life
love
is
that.
fun.
Yes, your why should change. It should evolve along with
It
the
should.
you that is evolving as we get more in touch with the essence of who we are. And you said coming home, and I love that because I always talk about this journey as one of becoming and unbecoming.
Mhm.
And so we are unbecoming some of the patterns and some of the traps and some of the mindset. And we're becoming a evolved version of ourselves. But there also is this connection to who we've always been.
Absolutely. I feel that when we are doing things in alignment with really what's for our highest good, so that could be achieving goals, it could be having a great physical fitness practice, it could be whatever it is, giving up alcohol, changing the way we eat. It should feel like what you're doing help it supports you feel more like yourself. It's the only way I can really say that.
Mhm.
And that's what that coming home feels like. It's that soul recognition of, "Oh, that's why I love this." So even for me, finding certain communities online where they may have a specific, for example, moon stuff. I'm not a I don't know about moon energy other than being an enthusiast. I love it. But there's a part of me that really, really loves it. Like, I light up when I find out, "Oh, new moon, this is it. This is this." I don't need to be an expert in it, but a part of me lights up, and I feel more like myself. So I'm going to just incorporate a little bit of moon woo-woo every month to bring in that play, and it is that connection, that soul connection,
Mhm.
uh, that's very it's invaluable with all of this. And if we're drinking or utilizing, using some other substance to numb, you can't hear it, you can't connect, it's just not the same.
Yeah, and it takes a little while. One of my coach friends calls it the great defrosting. Like we're so numb and we've layered so much, and it's like we're an old bag of peas in the freezer for 2 years, and we get those bag of peas out, and we're like, "Whoa, there's a lot of frost collected here. This poor bag of peas has been struggling there in the back," and
Yeah,
we can't access what we've been talking about without this holistic approach of
I
recognizing, that through line between mind, body, spirit. And it's such a beautiful way to just live life. And so this conversation has been so cool. Tell me one thing. This question has been circling in the back of my mind. So tell me and our listeners, how long have you been on this journey? How long have you been alcohol free?
I have been alcohol-free almost 3.5 years. I found, Sober Sis is the community that I joined with Jen Couch in August 22nd, 2022. It's a lot of 2s. Might want
Yes.
that number, uh, for my numerologist friends out there. Um, so that's how long it's been, 3.5 years, and much like you, if I go back and look at my journals, I know I was dancing with the truth that I was going to have to walk away from alcohol probably for over a decade. It
Mhm.
didn't stick, the dots didn't line up for me until then.
Mhm. Well, you've been on an accelerated path of taking this transformation and sharing it with others because 3.5 years, you've done a lot in
Yes.
that amount of time. Were you a Reiki coach before you stopped drinking?
Funny, yes, I was a practitioner, so the levels are Reiki practitioner and Reiki master. You can share Reiki with others as a practitioner as well. There's a few things that are different when you become a Reiki master, one of which is confidence, quite honestly, you just have the hours and the knowledge behind you. But I was practicing Reiki. The reason it has been so accelerated, in my opinion, is I was so utterly lost when I was drinking for a lot of different reasons, and I was able to tackle all these things, disordered eating being one of them, all sorts of other, there are many, many different things, not being able to set boundaries. Coaching, when we become a coach, of course, we learn how to coach ourselves first. Your first client is you. So I learned a whole bunch of beautiful things through coaching. The one thing that was really holding me back was this alcohol bit. And so I look at it as I was preloading this slingshot. I was pulling the slingshot back with all of this stuff, all of the knowledge, all of the lessons I'd learned, the things I was really trying to make work. And once I let go of the alcohol, that slingshot went boom and off I went.
Yeah.
And all the doors opened at the same time.
Wow.
And for me, it's been a wonderful experience of saying yes to everything, and now that coming back to those no's of how can I now narrow the field because I'm in it now. I'd done the work. For years, I had done the work on myself, but I could only get so far because alcohol was stopping me.
Mm. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So, tell my listeners how they can connect with you. And I don't know if you're able to share, but you have a book coming out this spring. I don't know if you're able to tease it a little bit.
I can tease that a little bit. I'm easy to find. My name is everywhere. So it's BrigittaDau.com. Same thing. Brigitta Dau Coaching on Instagram and Facebook. Same person. Um, those are the easiest ways to find me. I do have a newsletter people can sign up for, which is the best way to know what's going on in terms of classes that I'm offering online. I do a lot of things on Zoom. Group Reiki is possible. So do reach out if you're interested in that. And the book that have co-authored with another sober sis is Peggy Cooney. Peggy Cooney is a wonderful. She's one of the leaders of the Sober in the City group that you and I met at, and she and I have co-authored a book called "Landing on Your North Star," and this is really about that alignment. Everything you and I've talked about, pulling together the mind, body, spirit to help and support you. It's a workbook to support you in finding what makes what you're doing. How do you make that happen in alignment with your North Star? How do you discover it? How do you land on it? How do you get it? And how do you manage those things that will challenge you along the way? Because there will be challenges. Yeah.
Yes.
It's both practical and fun. And one of the things that we put in the very opening is play.
Mhm.
So that is a component of the book. So you will like it for sure.
Yes. Well, I
It's up
love that
your
it's a
alley.
workbook because I think we have a lot of theory in coaching. And because we don't just do talk therapy, that's not our only modality, but we can, that can be accessible and can override sometimes the practical steps of, okay, I'm understanding more about what my snag or my holdup is or what's holding my slingshot back, but I don't have the practical tools of how to move forward. And so I think we need more workbooks around this for sure. So I am excited. And Peggy, of course, is a mutual friend. So just so much love and gratitude to the two of you for finding this collaboration and putting this out in the world. I can't wait to read it and recommend it and share more about it when it comes out. So that's
Thank you.
fabulous.
Thank you. Yeah, it's exciting. It's creating a book is a lot of you learn so much about yourself in the process, as well as, each other. It's wonderful to collaborate. I'm a big fan, as you know, of collaboration, so it's been a wonderful process of just, yeah, learning more about each other and ourselves. It's wonderful, and it wouldn't have
Yeah.
happened. It wouldn't have happened if I had still been uh, caught up with the alcohol. It's just incredible how much bigger your life gets. The lie I told myself when I was still drinking was my life is going to be smaller when I give up alcohol. The opposite is life just gets bigger and brighter and shinier and more amazing.
That has
Mm.
been 100% true for me as well. So I love that you shared that. Well, thank you again, Brigitta, for coming on the
Thank you.
podcast, sharing your story. I feel so inspired. And it was wonderful to have a little bit more of a personal conversation with you and get to know you better. So thank you.
Me too. Thank you. This is wonderful. Thank you so much.
I want to thank you for tuning in to the Sober Edge podcast. This is a place for important conversations and a safe place to question everything you thought you knew about drinking. If you're looking for your sober edge, I want to invite you to connect with me at thesobernutritionist.com, where you can grab my free resource, Becoming More, a guide to loving your sober life. And I would be so grateful if you enjoyed this podcast, if you would leave a rating and review, as it will help more people find their sober edge.